Hey guys, it's me, Freddy Pop Collector, and as I'm sure we all know, one of the main reasons FNAF is so popular is because of its mysterious lore. An ongoing story that's over 10 games deep and like, what, 17,000 books long? Because there's so much and so little information to go off of, making a timeline is pretty much impossible. So us, the community, have taken it upon ourselves to make theories to explain certain things in the games that are pretty hard to explain. Because there's so many theories out there, today I thought I would go over some interesting possible Five Nights at Freddy's theories. Although this is a pretty big and broad topic, so joining me today is John from the FNAF channel.
Hey everyone, my name is John and I run the FNAF channel on YouTube. It's actually spelled FUHNAFF, not FNAF. Get it? No? Okay. Anyways, I'm here collaborating with Freddy Pop Collector to talk about some interesting possible FNAF theories. So let's just get into it. Actually, before I start, make sure you're subscribed to Freddy Pop Collector because he posts great videos on FNAF. I watched him before I even started my channel and I still watch him today, so make sure you do that with the post notifications on so you know right when he uploads a brand new video. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, the first theory I'm talking about is that Mangle's extra head was supposed to be a parrot. So, I actually never heard of this theory until now, and it honestly makes a lot of sense right off the bat. Of course, Mangle can't have two heads, so the other one has to belong to something, right? But upon further inspection, you start to realize the theory's flaws. The endoskeleton head attached to Mangle is about the same size as the one already attached to Mangle's head, so that would be a gigantic parrot. Also, it could be possible that the head could have came from a different animatronic. Mangle is an animatronic that kids can tear apart and put back together, so maybe they threw another head on Mangle on accident? I'm honestly leaning more towards that theory. I think when Scott designed Mangle 5 years ago, he didn't fully think about the lore implications of it. He probably just thought it looked cool to give Mangle multiple heads. Little did he know we'd still be talking about it 5 years later.
This next theory is actually one of the newest theories I've heard of, and that's the theory that the phantom animatronics from FNAF 3 aren't hallucinations. This one's a pretty complicated one, so please bear with me. As we all know who've read The Fourth Closet, in that book, William takes the remnants of the original 4 animatronics and puts them inside the new Funtime animatronics. If this happened in the games as well, we can assume that Molten Freddy has parts of the spirits of the original 4 animatronics, so if part of the spirits are inside Molten Freddy, the other half probably is the phantom animatronics from FNAF 3. This theory also indirectly confirms which ending actually happens in FNAF 3. It's the bad ending because the spirits haven't been put to rest yet. Even though it fits in really well to the story, there's a lot of holes here. Let's get the obvious out of the way first. Phantom Bonnie. If these really were spirits and not hallucinations, you'd think Bonnie would be here. And also, why are BB and Mangle here? Out of all the toy animatronics, Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, and Toy Chica, why would only some of them show up and not all of them? Even if we assume that Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, and Toy Chica weren't possessed, just corrupted, why is the puppet here? The puppet is alive and well and inside Lefty at this point for all we know. It's an interesting theory, definitely not impossible, but it really can't be proven either way.
So this next theory is that Ballora is Mrs Afton. This is a tough one. We don't have much information on Miss Afton, but I definitely do see the theory. The best piece of evidence we have of this being true is actually hidden in the lyrics of the song Ballora sings. She sings, "Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my halls? All I see is an empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb." So the line, "Why do you hide inside your walls," could refer to William shutting himself out from the rest of the world after Elizabeth gets killed by Baby. And the empty room Ballora refers to could be Elizabeth's bedroom after she died. That also might be why she refers to Elizabeth's room as her tomb. As far as Ballora actually being Mrs. Afton, I'm not sure because there's just not enough evidence, but I do think it's possible that William could have created Ballora as a sort of commemoration of Mrs. Afton after she's gone. Now, on to the next theory.
This next theory is about one of the most obscure characters in the entire franchise, that being Yenndo from Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. I know there's at least one person watching this video thinking Yenndo isn't canon, Sister Location Custom Night isn't canon, there's no way he has a theory about him, he's not even canon to the lore, and to that I say, you're wrong. While it is true the only time Yenndo is a threat in the FNAF franchise is in Sister Location Custom Night, but he actually appears as an Easter egg in the actual Sister Location game. When you're making your way through the Funtime Auditorium in Sister Location, on very rare occasions when you flash the beacon, you can see Yenndo standing there for a split second. So if Yenndo is canon, what is he supposed to be, and why doesn't he have a suit like the other animatronics? Well, according to this theory, Yenndo is a prototype endoskeleton for some sort of Funtime Fredbear animatronic. Evidence to support this theory theory is scarce, but what people always point to when supporting this theory is Yenndo's odd eye color. Scott is very precise and consistent when it comes to eye color in the FNAF franchise, so why are Yenndo's eyes yellow out of all colors? That, along with Yenndo's name origins, Yellow-Eyed Endo, a lot of people think Yenndo was some sort of Funtime Fredbear animatronic at one point, and at the time of recording this video, we can't prove it otherwise.
So the next theory is that Mangle is Susie's dog. This is actually one of my favorite FNAF theories. A lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about this, so please know that this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that any of this is fact. But when it comes to this theory, I do believe that Mangle is Susie's dog. Similar to MatPat's theory, I believe that William killed Susie's real dog in order to experiment with Remnant. I believe William took the dog's Remnant and used it to possess the Mangle animatronic. We know this because of the Fruity Maze minigame from FNAF 6. As we all know, the more you play the game, the crazier it gets, and eventually you start seeing Susie's dog torn apart and bleeding all over the maze. If you zoom in on the dead dog, you'll notice it has one missing eye, just like Mangle. That's a design detail that Scott definitely knew about. In Daco's interview with Scott, he mentioned that FNAF 6 was a game that he made to wrap up the lore. So for a game that was meant to solve lore, I don't think Scott would take any chances with small details like that. Also, some further evidence of this is the fact that Mangle is the only animatronic that creates a radio frequency sound, different from any other animatronic in FNAF history. Mangle never actually speaks, so that leads me to believe that that one detail is what makes Mangle possessed by Susie's dog.
Next up is the theory that Michael Afton is the protagonist of FNAF 1, 2, and 3. It's pretty much all but confirmed that he's the protagonist of Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, but what evidence do we have to support that he's the protagonist of FNAF 1, 2, and 3? Well, let's get the obvious out of the way first. In FNAF 1, when you get your paycheck, the protagonist's name is Mike Schmidt. It could either A, be Mrs. Afton's last name, or B, it could be just some sort of disguise name. But let's look at the reasoning for why he was fired in FNAF 1 and 2. Odor?
You serious?
What at first seemed just like a funny joke is actually one of the biggest supporting pieces of evidence in this theory. After Michael Afton gets scooped, he's decaying and probably very, very stinky. That's pretty much all we have for evidence, but it's such a crucial detail, and if it's not about Michael Afton, you have to wonder, why did Scott put this here?
Now, onto the final theory. Okay, so my next theory is a big one, and it's that FNAF 4 isn't a nightmare. So let's start with some evidence for why this might be true. In FNAF 4, if it was all just a nightmare, why would Scott name the last night nightmare? If they were all nightmares, Scott wouldn't need to specify one night as a nightmare. Also, people suggest that Scott wouldn't make it so obvious by naming the animatronics Nightmare animatronics because there would be no more mystery to the game anymore. But I actually disagree. I do believe that FNAF 4 is a nightmare, and I also am one of the people who believe most of the FNAF games are just a dream, but we don't need to fully dive into that right now. Some evidence to back this up is the design of Nightmare Fredbear. Notice how his stomach resembles a mouth. The crying child sees Fredbear's stomach as a mouth after witnessing Elizabeth get scooped into baby's stomach and killed. Also notice the IV and flowers Easter egg in FNAF 4, which is Scott hinting to us that this is the crying child's dream while recovering from the bite in the hospital. Also, the infamous grandfather clock theory that MatPat created backs up this theory. If we were actually in that room being hunted by the nightmare animatronics, the grandfather clock would have woken us up, not the digital alarm clock you would find in hospitals. Anyways, I know that's a deep-rooted theory, but I thought I'd give my 2 cents on it. Anyways, that's all the theories I'll be covering in this video. Thank you so much to Freddy Pop Collector for having me on his channel. Make sure to subscribe to him for some high-quality FNAF videos. He seriously is a great FNAF YouTuber, guys. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.
The first theory I'm going to be talking about is the theory that Purple Guy died intentionally in the spring Bonnie suit from FNAF 3. At the end of each night, you're taken to the FNAF 1 location where Purple Guy takes apart the animatronics one by one. On night 5, you're playing as a spirit. Along with 4 other children, you force William inside the spring Bonnie suit. This theory, however, suggests that William gets inside the suit intentionally and he laughs because he knows he's going to come back stronger than ever in the form of Glitch Trap. I have always found it odd that William gets inside the suits to hide from the spirits. I don't think that's really gonna work, but I don't really know why he decides to do that. It's already a risk to do it in the first place, but around spirits in a damaged building with a bunch of water puddles, I don't think William would be dumb enough to do that. In the novels, William stays states that his goal is to become his own immortal being, and by killing himself in the spring Bonnie suit, maybe there was remnant on the spring locks or something, he succeeded at that. The only way being able to be killed is by fire. Same goes for Glitch Trap. We try to kill him in Help Wanted, and it doesn't really seem to work. This theory isn't mind-boggling for the lore or timeline or anything, it's just interesting because us fans have always thought that him getting inside the spring lock was an accident or a mistake, but what if it wasn't? What if it was a part of his plan the whole time? Next up is the theory that the spring lock suit from Sister Location Night 4 is actually Funtime Chica. There's two major pieces of supporting evidence to back up this theory. One, when we're inside the suit, it obviously has a very Chica-shaped face, and two, we don't see Funtime Chica for the entire game, maybe because she was in the scooping room the whole time, just from a different perspective. The only information we get about the suit is that it's one, a spring lock suit, and two, it came from Circus Baby's Pizza World. Obviously, that's where the Funtime animatronics were until they were put underground after Elizabeth's death. The only major problem I have with this theory is obviously the spring locks. Throughout the entire series, the Funtime animatronics have never been even mentioned to have any form of a spring lock mechanic. Also, in the Dawko interview, Dawko asked Scott if he could confirm which character this is, and if it was Funtime Chica, I feel like it wouldn't be that big of a deal to reveal it, but if it has a bigger purpose, he obviously wants to keep it a mystery for a reason.
So here's an interesting one, which I don't know if you're gonna answer or not. So in Night 4, when we're inside the suit, a lot of people wanted to know whose suit is that?
Whose suit is that? I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to answer that for you.
This theory has been floating around the community for about 4 years now, and to this day, in my opinion, I still feel like it's one of the biggest unanswered questions in the entire series. Next up is the theory that the shadow animatronics from FNAF 2 aren't possessed or spirits or anything like that, but rather they are agony. For years, the shadow animatronics have remained some of the biggest mysteries in the entire franchise. The community has mostly just shut them out, and MatPat's only made like one theory about them. Even though they keep showing up game after game after game after game, the community is still stumped and can't really figure out what they're supposed to be. But with the release of the Fazbear Fright books, us fans might finally have the answers we've been waiting for. This theory brings up the idea that the shadow animatronics aren't spirits at all, but are rather just forms of agony. To understand agony better, let me play a quick clip from Game Theory. I'll leave a link to the full episode in the description if you want to watch it.
As he says himself, quote, "Human emotion is slower to impact, more insidious. It emanates from us, or is excreted from us like sweat or tears, and it wafts outward like a noxious cloud soaking into the surroundings." In particular, his research is centered around the intense emotion of agony. In order to study it, we see that Phineas collects hundreds of haunted objects to search for this emotion trapped inside. Again, from the book, the word haunted could mean showing signs of torment or some kind of mental anguish. These items on Phineas's shelves weren't possessed by ghosts. The ones that were truly haunted were energized by agony.
As we all know, 5 children were murdered in the FNAF 2 location. We know this thanks to the Save Them minigame, where we see 5 dead children along with the toy and withered animatronics. This theory states that the agony from the dead children is what resulted in the creation of the shadow animatronics. This is further supported by the shadow animatronics colors, purple and black, which seems to be the color of agony, as again supported by the Fazbear Fright books. I could go into more detail, but honestly, I think I'm gonna save this for a future video I have coming up down the road. Tell me what you guys think about this theory. This seems to be a less popular theory that I don't really see that many people talking about. Next up is another Yenndo theory. Last episode we touched on the idea that Yenndo might be some sort of prototype for a Funtime Fredbear animatronic, but today's Yenndo theory, we're gonna be talking about how Yenndo might be related to Lefty from FNAF 6. I'll keep this one short and sweet since there's not really a lot of evidence to back it up. The theory goes that Yenndo is Lefty's endoskeleton. The only real connection we have to this is the amount of fingers and also the eye color. If the puppet was going to take control of Lefty, maybe Henry had to remove some of the endoskeleton. This really isn't a theory, it's honestly just a loose connection at best, but definitely something to consider. And the final theory that we'll be going over in this video is the theory that Susie was the very first victim ever taken by William Afton. MatPat was the very first one to bring up this idea. He gets his evidence from the Withered Chica quote from Ultimate Custom Night.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
I don't know about you guys, but am I the only one who thinks MatPat might be taking this quote out of context? When Withered Chica says, quote, "I was the first, I've seen everything," I'm pretty sure she's talking about the first generation of animatronics, so she's been there since the beginning of the timeline. The puppet was the first victim taken, either at Fredbear's Family Diner, or the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with the withered animatronics, where it's honestly not very clear, and it doesn't really matter. The puppet was first. Again, Chica could have been the very first victim, but I don't think so. Tell me what you guys think about this in the comments. Maybe I'm just looking at the quote wrong, but I don't feel like Scott would drop that big of a lore reveal in a voice line of all things, and Withered Chica's voice line at that. But with all that being said, that's gonna wrap out episode 2 of Interesting Possible FNAF Theories. The first theory I want to talk about is actually a really recent one, that being that UCN isn't hell like we thought, but rather some sort of nightmare. After William burned to death in the FNAF 6 fire, many fans assumed that Ultimate Custom Night wouldn't be canon. However, through many secret voice lines and the final cutscene of the game, us fans are 100% sure this game is canon. Many of us assumed after FNAF 6 and William burned to death this was a personal hell created by Cassidy, but that's never been officially confirmed. This theory suggests that instead of a personal hell, it may be some sort of nightmare. The major evidence supporting this theory actually comes from the 5th Fazbear Fright book Bunny, called the second story called The Man in Room 1280. In the story, a man with gruesome burns is basically dead, but he's being kept alive by something supernatural. It's also explained that the man is having constant nightmares, and if we apply this knowledge to the game, it's possible that William survived the FNAF 6 fire, was taken to a hospital, and maybe is being tormented by Cassidy in a nightmare. Yes, it's still the same idea, but the main difference here is that William is still technically alive if this theory is true. Next up is the theory that Phantom Freddy from FNAF 3 is actually Golden Freddy. The reason why people believe this is because the Phantom Freddy model from FNAF 3 actually is the exact same model as Withered Golden Freddy from FNAF 2. While yes, this theory can't be proven false, personally I don't believe Scott intended this to be Golden Freddy. I still believe this is regular Phantom Freddy. While yes, in the grand scheme of the lore, this theory doesn't really matter, but it's still interesting to see people debate about this to this day. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think this is regular Phantom Freddy, or do you think this is Phantom Golden Freddy? Next up is the theory that Circus Baby is possessed by 2 people at the same time, similar to what we think is going on with Golden Freddy. I'm gonna show you a clip where people get their evidence for this theory.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long, only one day. What a wonderful day, though. I was in a small room with balloons and a few tables. No one sat at the tables, though, but children would run in and out. Some were afraid of me, others enjoyed my songs. Music was always coming from somewhere else, down a hall. I would always count the children, I'm not sure why. I was always acutely aware of how many there were in the room with me. 2, then 3, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 2, then none.
The reason why Baby's speech is so weird is because she talks in the tense that she isn't the one talking, it's not Elizabeth, it's someone else. Baby points out the things in her surroundings, like the fact that there was music playing in a hall, it was a small room with only a few tables and chairs, and that she smelled like birthday cake, things that Elizabeth wouldn't really remember because she hadn't possessed her yet. While again, I don't personally believe in this theory, I do think Baby might have had some sort of artificial intelligence before Elizabeth possessed her. Like the Phantom Freddy theory, the next one is a bit of a mini one, that being the theory that Nightmare represents death or is some sort of embodiment of death. He's basically kind of like a Grim Reaper type of thing. It's the last thing the crying child sees before he passes away. I do see where this theory comes from. Yes, it makes sense. Nightmare is kind of a shadowy representation of Fredbear the animatronic that pretty much ended his life. Also, one of his UCN voice lines supports the idea that, yeah, he's this kind of soul-taking, life-ending entity.
Here to claim what is left of you.
While yes, this is the most solid answer we have for Nightmare's true identity, I don't really think it's a satisfying answer. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, like 1, why was he transparent in FNAF 4, and also, why does he have Golden Freddy's inverted colors? It's definitely a solid theory, but I think just calling him the representation of death is a little bit too vague, and I think Scott had bigger plans for him. And the final theory we will be going over in this video is the theory that Glitch Trap possesses every single FNAF AR animatronic. Like Ultimate Custom Night, VR, and now AR, fans are convinced FNAF AR isn't canon to the rest of the games, but after doing some research, I personally believe it is. Not only is Vanny in this game, but also there's a way to explain how all the animatronics are possessed and attacking you. In the game's emails, we learn the company scans circuit boards which contain a virus, aka Glitch Trap. This virus spreads throughout the system and hacks all the animatronics, presumably. I really like this theory because it explains how FNAF AR is canon, while also giving an explanation on how all the animatronics are possessed if there's no more spirits left, of course, besides Glitch Trap. And with that being said, that's gonna wrap out part 3 of interesting possible FNAF theories. The first theory we will be discussing is the theory that Vanny is an Afton. I know this sounds far-fetched, but there is some actual evidence supporting this. In some unreleased FNAF AR emails, it's confirmed to us that Vanessa's last initial is A. Considering there's only a handful of confirmed last names in the FNAF canon, it's really odd to me that they would give her the last initial A, especially considering it's probably the most recognizable and famous last name of the FNAF canon. What do you guys think? Do you think she could be an Afton, or would you be willing to bet that it's just a coincidence? This was in the FNAF AR files after all, not security breach, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Next up is the theory that Toy Chica did the bite of 87. The evidence for this theory comes to us from one of her death quotes in Ultimate Custom Night.
Where's my beak? Lodged in your forehead, of course.
While I'm not the biggest fan of this theory, I guess I can understand it to an extent. UCN voice lines definitely have some importance, so who knows, but Toy Chica doing the bite? Not the biggest fan. Next up is our final UCN theory, that being the theory that Baby's the voice behind all the mediocre melodies, secret voice lines.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again, forever. I will never let you leave.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
As much as that sounds like Baby, I personally don't believe that's her. Not only is it really random and weird in a lore sense, but also there was a casting call for Vengeful Spirit, and if this isn't it talking, then it's literally just not in the game. While this theory isn't impossible, the voice being Baby doesn't really make much sense, so I don't believe this one. Before we move on to the next possible theory, be sure to like and subscribe. My main goal for 2021 is to reach 100,000 subscribers, so if you guys could subscribe, it would really mean a lot. Thank you so much for all the support you guys have been giving me lately. We're already halfway there. It would be really awesome to hit that sometime before the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get back to the video. Next up is the theory that the Midnight Motorist Jr.'s location is the FNAF 2 location. This entire theory actually comes from MatPat. I'll link the full episode of this clip in the description.
Later that night, Afton goes to a place called Junior's where he's turned away at the door. Now, why would Scott show us this? FNAF 6 was all about tying up loose ends. He's not just gonna throw in a random bar to establish that the Mustard Man is an alcoholic or anything. He's doing it to establish a timeline. The only time we hear of anyone being turned away from any building for any reason in this series is in FNAF 2.
From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees.
And the name Juniors makes sense, in Scott's classic way of giving us clues that are meant to clarify things, but really just end up confusing all of us. Remember, FNAF 2's location is the grand reopening, a second Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria location, a junior location, if you will.
Besides the Vanny theory at the beginning, this one probably has the most weight to it. It does seem a little bit out there, but it's definitely not impossible. And our final theory for this entire series is the theory that the FNAF 2 endoskeleton is Wither Golden Freddy's endoskeleton. It's really interesting because on one hand, we know for a fact Wither Golden Freddy is a hallucination, but at the same time, the endoskeleton also appears to be a hallucination, so I'm pretty sure the only reason this theory exists is to give an explanation for why the Endo 02 Easter egg is even in the game. If you didn't know, the reason why a lot of people believe the Endo 02 is an Easter egg is because it doesn't attack you, it appears in the vents and on some cameras, but that's it. It really does make you wonder, if that isn't the explanation, then why is this here and what is it supposed to represent? And with all that being said, that's gonna wrap out the final part of interesting possible FNAF theories.